how and why have environmental skeptics and certain think tanks been so successful at establishing a place in the media, while the scientific community, for example, finds themselves pushing the rock up the mountain?
It doesn't take a lot of doubt in this realm to make people fuzz out completely on an issue that's a long-term building, global, somewhere, someday phenomenon. So it just takes the tiniest sprinkling. So the people who've wanted stasis have had the easiest part of the time by far. The totally outsized ability to slow down the discourse. It's not just people have, including Al Gore, have blamed the media for the stasis. The stasis is much more deep than the media. The media, the norm of balance and all that stuff definitely exists, but this problem is much bigger than that. It's a sociological reality.
Andy, you were talking about how you gave your example of the college-educated Republicans, and how if there are preconceived notions, then it's very difficult to change attitudes about science. And especially today, when we hear that 40% of Americans don't believe that evolution is happening, what advice would you give to scientists to try to help them communicate their work in a better way to the public?
Just do more. It's not hard to make a YouTube video. It's not hard to have it is hard to have a blog. Just ask Gavin Schmidt at Goddard Institute of Space Studies, who does realclimate.org. It is hard to do a blog. I don't necessarily recommend you going there. But having a website for whatever project it is that has elements that are interactive, that especially reach out to the next generation, because despite our concern about the pace of change, this will be a multi-generational task. We're heading toward 9 billion people, more or less, and there are 1 billion teenagers alive on planet Earth right now. Just that one number, 1 billion people between the ages of 10 and 19. 150 years ago, there were 1 billion people altogether. Now there are 1 billion teenagers. And if you're not interacting with them, and not just here, but in developing countries where all those species live that have been on the wall here all day, then that's also a great failing of the scientific community. If there isn't more effort to build bridges with institutions in developing countries to get capacity, not just to do the science, but to communicate it to the public who are emerging out of poverty, there's so much potential there. Frankly, half the time I think about jumping ship in some way or other and not just continuing to write for the New York Times, because there's so much to do in that realm that's such low-hanging fruit. And with technology, with mobile phones, Africa is becoming wired at the pace that you can't imagine. And that's in the hands of kids and women and people who are actually interacting with these species where it matters. So there's tons that can be done that isn't being done.